Did you just throw your phone?
No, I did not throw the phone.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Beg Pardon, Water Cooler Series. As always, I'm your host Anthony, joined by Carlos. Welcome, Carlos.
Hey.
And welcome to the show. For those of you who might not be familiar with our Water Cooler Series, so weekly we just take a topic that's kind of at the top of people's minds that you would talk about at a water cooler in the office, and we give you our opinions on said topic. So similar to Beg Pardon, just smaller, condensed, and more current instead of just whatever we want to talk about. But how's it going, Carlos?
It is good, and as always, this especially water cooler is presented by the Fiji water cooler, if you will. If we're looking for a sponsor there, Fiji, every episode, just saying, I give you a shout out.
Carlos is trying so hard to get Fiji to sponsor this. If you guys haven't noticed, since January of this year, almost practically since January of this year, Carlos has been peddling Fiji water in hopes that we'll achieve a sponsorship. Unfortunately, we still have not. So
not even a case yet, though. Like, come on. Like,
yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, once we crossed like the like in the thousands of downloads, like once we crossed into a sphere of being like a real show, I thought they would at least like send like a case, and they have not. So
not even a thank you letter. Not even a thank you note. Not even a tweet. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm not expecting a thank you note, but
I'm not gonna stop buying. But
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a case. But anyways, the topic this week is not Fiji or their water. We're going to talk about the DNC this week. So this week, for those of you that are not aware, the Democratic Party is holding their convention. And their convention, that's kind of like the nominating process, right? Where they go and they announce the nominee for president and vice president of that election cycle. Now, this year, we had they remain the presumptive nominees until the actual ceremony where they accept it. Tonight, Joe Biden will officially become the Democratic nominee for president of the United States in the 2020 election cycle. Prior to that, he was just the presumptive nominee. But basically, that's, in a nutshell, that's what this is. And this year, in particular, it was very different because of COVID. And it was interesting to see what the Democratic Party was going to do in terms of not like social distancing and not being able to have like big. I mean, that's been the whole draw of these things, right? Is having everyone packed in this auditorium. People doing the roll call for the states where they announce their delegates for each candidate, and it was just a very exciting and exhilarating time whenever you have like the stage and the music and the streamers and the balloons and people yelling, and all of that was gone this year. So Carlos, from what you've seen, what did you think?
I saw the highlights, I'm not gonna lie and be like, well, Anthony, I actually watched the entire. No, I saw the highlights. Right. And I thought it was really well put for what they could do. Like you said, you couldn't have all the fanfare in terms, as political fanfare as you can get. I mean, nobody had t-shirt cannons or anything in years past.
Right.
But I thought it was well put together. I thought, the people had, I think, an adequate amount of time to get your point across. I think Michelle Obama, came in and stole the show. But every speech I heard was kind of like, it was sobering. It wasn't a like
right. Yeah.
It wasn't so much.
It wasn't like let's get excited, everyone.
Yeah. It was like a somber, like,
a lot of violence.
We can't do this again. Yeah, like, come on, guys.
Like, we're tired. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
But then at the end, there were always like, but there's a glimmer of hope, you all. Here's a seed that we are going to plant. Like, it was a lot like that. And there wasn't a lot of like low blows to the Republican Party that I saw anyway. It wasn't anything like outlandish.
Really?
Like, it wasn't anything that was like over the top where you could be like, that was too far. It was fair.
Well, I feel when in your recollection, definitely not in our lifetime, I don't think, did you have past presidents, like very recently from office, like literally the last cycle, criticizing the current president so like bluntly, like in-house? I've never seen that.
Sure, but the criticizing isn't, like I said, anything that's unfounded. Like, it's not like he went personal, or it's not like he brought up outlandish things. I mean, everything, it writes itself. Like, you don't have to do it. And I as much of a high road as they could take in politics, I commend them for that. They didn't go too low. They stood with the facts. I mean, it's not their fault. They got a lot of material to work with, but they stood with the facts. So I thought that was kind of nice.
Yeah, I was impressed by. I don't know if you saw the highlights of Bernie Sanders' speech. I was impressed by Bernie Sanders. I was impressed by Bernie Sanders because you have somebody who is like the quote unquote black sheep of the Democratic Party, very loosely in the Democratic Party, self-identified Democratic Socialist, really building this grassroots campaign. One could argue treated very unfairly by the Democratic Party machine in 2016. You can't make as strong of an argument in 2020, but a similar argument in 2020. And then you had him in the end come forward and tiptoe a very, very fine line with conveying a message to the people that have supported him all this time and trying to unite the more central, the more moderate Democratic Party. So I thought that was very. I was interested to see what that was going to look like, and I thought he did a fantastic job. I think in 2016, I don't think that he did enough to support Hillary Clinton whenever she did receive the nomination. And I think he drug his feet, and I think in part that aided in costing her the election. And I think he was aware of that. And if he wasn't aware of that, I think he was made aware of that.
There was a conversation after.
Yeah. I think he was made aware of that. And then they're like, all right, Sanders, this is how it's going to go down, and this is how we're going to play ball. So either way, it was interesting to kind of see that. The one thing that I don't know, it's to be seen, is whenever you had the inclusion of all of these Republicans that were basically convincing the viewership that, like, Republicans, you can trust Joe Biden. He's not a crazy leftist socialist.
Yeah.
Like, he's very middle of the road. You can trust him. You have the Democratic Party really moving towards the left at an accelerated pace. I mean, that universal health care complete universal health care is new for our lifetime. Mm-hmm. Like, having the majority of the party and all candidates, if I wasn't mistaken, all candidates that were running for the Democratic nomination this year, but supporting that very idea in some way, shape, or form or another.
Yeah.
You didn't see that before. So you have this move towards the left. So I thought it was very weird that they tried to find as many Republicans as they could to be like, hey, he's not that liberal, guys. Just remember, you can count on Joe to be middle of the road.
Yeah.
But the base of the Democratic Party, they don't want that. So, or I get the overwhelming majority. What that told me was I felt like this entire thing was a referendum on Donald Trump. It was less about, yes, it's important that they have policies and they have plans that they explain to the American people and what they're going to do. But I thought the majority of this was just a complete referendum on Donald Trump.
I mean, at this point, I think everyone kind of agrees, like, we'll sort it out after. Well, I mean, we have policies. We do. We're not going to dive deep into it, though, because let's just focus on this right now. Because this fire is out of control. And they're all like, I feel like you guys aren't appreciating this enough. Because it's literally every day where you're like, he didn't say that. That didn't happen. And again, like you said, you have a candidate in Biden who, I mean, pretty publicly on Twitter will either retweet one of his things and be like, are you serious? or he'll like retweet it and be like, you shouldn't have a president that would do this. That's not what a president would do.
Right.
I don't remember anybody ever doing that on Twitter, but it's become like a Twitter war basically. But I think the Republicans that they brought in were, like you said, to try to sway people to be like, listen, we came from that, and I'm telling you, this is the reality, because they wanted to try to pull people. But I think, and you and I talked about this off camera, I think that both the DNC and the RNC, it's not going to do much to sway anyone. At this point in time,
No.
either you're with him or you're with him. There really isn't much where you're like, I don't know, I'm still kind of on the middle. He says some crazy stuff, but he brings some good points. No one says that. It's either you're with him or you're with him. So I don't think that these are going to be like in years past where, you know, they could have swayed somebody one way or the other. I think it's just a matter of people themselves have to kind of take stock in what do you believe? What do you feel comfortable representing? Like, what's representing you? Do you feel comfortable with it? Because it can't be any more like, well, I've been a Republican my whole life, so I had to vote Republican, or I've been a Democrat. It can't, because there are certain things that are coming down the pike and that have been happening that you can't turn a blind eye to because it's your party. Like, at a certain point, human decency has to kick in, and you're like, listen, I'm still a Republican, but I'm going to vote Democrat this year because, I mean, my party failed me, or vice versa. But I think that's just something that the DNC and the RNC, they're not going to do for you. Like, you have to take stock in it yourself. But I think what they did do pretty good is they really hammered home the message of, like, there is hope on the horizon. We can do it. Like, it will get better if Joe Biden wins. Like, that was the underlying, they kept, like, it will get better.
Only if.
Exactly. And, you know, I think it's interesting, too, because I really am looking forward to what the RNC is going to be like. Because, you have people who, when they spoke, it was eloquent, it was direct, it was something that you can be like, okay, that makes sense. Like, Bernie's speech was very elegant, thought. You can tell, like, he thought about that. It wasn't an emotional reaction to things. Kamala Harris's, Michelle Obama's, like, it was all, there was a purpose. Oh, Barack Obama's was moving to the point of almost tears. Like,
I thought he was gonna cry.
Yeah,
I really thought he, at multiple points during that, I was like, my God, I feel like he's gonna cry. Like, am I gonna cry? Like, what's happening? That's how I felt that during his speech.
And I think, you know, with the RNC, it's gonna be interesting how, if they go that route, where they have, like, you know, a clear message and they're just trying to not save face, but kind of reassure people that, you know, we have everything under control, but, or is it going to be a lot of, like, nasty woman and and all that? Because in terms of failed promises, I can't remember a president where there was more failed promises. I don't think one promises came true.
Well, and I think what we're going to see from the RNC, and if you guys are wondering too, we will do a water cooler. We're going to cover the RNC as well, and what that looked like in the age of COVID. But I think what we're going to see, and similar to what we saw from the Democrats, is you have both parties in a Bob Ross-like fashion painting this dystopian future if the opposite party gets elected into office.
Yeah. No happy trees.
No happy trees. And I think Trump said something similar to this today, as of this recording, was that if Joe Biden becomes president of the United States, I mean, the streets will be on fire like they are in the inner cities of Chicago. Like, that's literally the picture that he was painting in Pennsylvania whenever he was, here's the thing about Trump too. Trump is a showman. He is a showman. And I think what you're going to see from the Republican Party is, one, Donald Trump has spent all week long watching these. And we know he has because he tweets in real time against what he is seeing. So we know that he is watching them. But I guarantee you, I mean, at the end of the day, he's a television producer at heart. And I think that he's going to try and pull out any stop that he possibly can. What will be interesting is if he tries to incorporate like live audience, whatever he tries to incorporate, right? Because he's, in terms of COVID, Democrat, Republican, I don't care what your party affiliation is, you can't say we're winning. You can't. College and universities recently reopened. Numerous ones have already shuttered and shut back down. And we're not going in the direction that we need to go in. Like, it's a very sombering moment whenever we're like, I think we're about to get under 1,000 deaths a day.
Yeah.
That's insanity. There were 1.1 million people as of this recording that filed for unemployment last week. And we are about to go below the million mark. So you can't spin that. So it'll be very interesting to see if they try to avoid COVID, if they try to dive deeper into it and try to explain it. Because, you know, it's easy for the Democrats, right? They're not in office. They don't have to answer to this. I don't know how many of those speeches people are like, the economy's terrible, people are without jobs, schools aren't real, our kids aren't in school, they can't be in school, basically blaming the Republican Party. But that's all that they had to do. They didn't have to answer for it. They didn't have to come up with a conclusion. Yeah, people aren't in schools because it's not safe to go in schools. If there were a Democrat in office, would people be in schools right now? Who knows? It's easy to criticize whenever you're not the one in office.
I mean, that's a fair point.
Yeah, it's easy. It's very easy to do that. And I think that as far as the DNC goes, I think I know the RNC, anything that they do is going to look like copycatting what the DNC did. But the roll call was super cool to me, going to all the states and territories and seeing what people chose as their backdrops for it, seeing who they had to represent it. That was very cool to me. Kind of brought like this inclusive feel to the party. I think and this is maybe a very unpopular opinion, so I apologize in advance if people don't like it. But something that I think the Democrats are guilty of doing, and they really need to watch it, is I feel they pander to black people, brown people, gay people, minorities in general of any community, sometimes in a way that is very unauthentic, where you're like, all right, I think that you're just kind of pandering to me. And I didn't get huge amounts of that, but the Democratic Party is usually really kind of like on the fence with that kind of stuff. Like, I would almost rather just give it to me straight. Like, I don't want to feel used for my vote, you know?
Right. I don't want to see them sitting at their desk holding cans of beans they never eat, you know? I don't want to see that.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, we got to be a little bit careful there. I thought Kamala Harris's speech was great. You know what I think is interesting, and I enjoy it, is that they're really, whenever it comes to talking about her, I like how they we're moving away from the stigma in the United States that if you're not white, you're black. And I think that was a big thing for a long, long time. I think 10, 15 years ago, if Kamala Harris was the vice president of the United States, they would just be focusing on the part of her that is black. Because America was very white and black. That's all it was. There was almost nothing else. And if you have any Hispanic or Latino ancestry at all, you're Mexican. Didn't matter. Everyone was Mexican, and that's still a problem today, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where people
that's a whole nother
people are
episode.
still doing that. But right. I think that it's interesting. And refreshing that we're focusing on, you know, her South Asian heritage, and we're focusing on her heritage as a black woman, and we're focusing, like, I think that's it was really nice, and I'm glad that they're doing that. I think that she was a good pick for Joe Biden. She was the not safe pick, because I don't like that. I don't think that it was. I've heard people mention safe pick, and I've heard people having issues with that, and I also have issues with it, because I don't think that it's safe to have a minority woman as the VP. I don't. We're not in a time yet where I would say, yeah, that's normal, because that's not normal. I think it was predictable, and that's okay.
It was a smart pick.
Yeah, I think it was a predictable pick. And I think that she will do a really good job in her debate with Mike Pence. I think she can stand her own with either of those two gentlemen, Donald Trump or Mike Pence. I think that she's probably a better orator than Joe Biden is, to be honest. I'm very nervous to see. We'll also be covering the debates as they happen as well, too, on this channel. I think that I think that Joe Biden, it's a prediction, I don't know if it'll happen or not. I think Joe Biden will struggle in the debates. I do. I don't enjoy watching him talk. I don't enjoy watching him debate. Not that I'm going to say I don't enjoy watching him talk. I don't enjoy watching him debate. There are times where it's a little cringy, and I think because you have somebody that's really fighting against the ever-changing landscape of political norms, societal norms, and on what to say and how to say it. It's easier for people who don't follow those so loosely. Donald Trump, he doesn't care. He doesn't care what's politically correct. He doesn't care, and it's very refreshing for people. It's very refreshing for people. Whether that's in a positive or negative way, it is very refreshing. And it's nice to see a politician who doesn't try to give you the old DC dip and twirl, and they lie, and he could still be lying, but he does it in a way that's new, I guess, so people enjoy that. I don't know. They enjoy being lied to in a different way.
I would prefer to just watch them duke it out instead of debate, because they're both kind of like, they're both cringy to listen to when they debate topics.
Yeah.
And I would much rather just see them like throw hands and like kings of old go on the front lines and just fight right then and there. I think that's much more their speed, because I don't think either of them are really good in terms of like, not public speaking, because Joe Biden's been doing this for a long time. But I don't think either of them are good at answering questions. I think they're both of the mind frame of, I'm going to ramble and then be like, I'm sorry, what was the question? Like that type of thing. And I don't want to hear that in a debate. Yeah. So I'm not looking forward to that. But the Kamala Harris debate, I am looking forward to. Because I feel like that will at least be somewhat of an intelligent debate, and an interesting debate. Because I don't know if I've heard more than 3 interviews from Mike Pence. I don't know if he's allowed to talk, but I rarely ever see him say anything. So
yeah, you see a very different relationship between Mike Pence and Donald Trump than you did in Joe Biden and Barack Obama. You see a very different relationship between those two people. And going back to this real quick with the DNC, one of the criticisms of Barack Obama from Republicans, especially Donald Trump, is that he waited very, 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 very long before he endorsed Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. Now, you could argue that he was waiting for the process to sort it out, and it's for the party, right? He was going to support whoever the Democratic nominee was for president, and it would do no good to endorse Joe Biden the previous year, and then if he wasn't the nominee because the people didn't want him to be the nominee, then Barack Obama loses credibility with the people. I don't know if that was part of the mentality, but he was your vice president. Like, he was your vice president. You picked him out of everyone in the United States who was eligible to be your vice president. So if you didn't want him to be president, should you have picked him to be your VP? So I think that there's an argument to be made there. I think that'll come back to. I think that'll come back a couple times throughout this process. And I think that there were some missed opportunities throughout the week. I mean, you had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez given 90 seconds,
I was like,
90 seconds to speak. Somebody arguably the rising star in the Democratic Party, one of the most famous political figures in the United States, has a huge following, especially of young people. So it was very kind of disheartening to see the decisions that were made there. And I don't know, again, because she represents something that is not Joe Biden.
mm-hmm.
You know, it is Joe Biden running for president, so focus on Joe. So, I mean, there's the argument there. And then having Bill Clinton there at all, I think that he's a very...
polarizing.
Yes. Very polarizing individual. And it's one of those things where you look at Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton to a certain degree, but definitely Bill Clinton, and you look at that and you're like, this has not aged well. This has not aged well.
Yeah.
And I don't mean them in particular have not aged well. I mean personal and political crises involving them have not aged well at all.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't aged well either, to be honest. Like, physically, he hasn't aged well, but...
Well, he has a lot of political and personal crises that have aged him, I think.
That's fair.
So, I you know, it's very... As the Democratic Party tries to unite and be respectful, I don't know. You can't have both sides to me. You can't embrace women in the Me Too movement and then make Bill Clinton one of your keynote speakers. You can't, because there's too many rumblings, you know? There's too many rumblings, there's too many accusers, there's too many victims to have him on there and then not have political commentators comment on it, or podcast hosts. Like, there's too much drama there. So some missteps, but that's to be expected with everything. I'm sure we'll talk about some missteps with the RNC as well. But we
might be a two-parter, folks.
We want to hear from you guys. If you watch the DNC, if you're planning on watching the RNC, and you know, just kind of what you think the state of politics is in this country right now. You know, it's very interesting to hear. You know, we all live in kind of our own bubbles, right? And it's interesting to get another perspective and kind of what you guys think the landscape is going to look like in November. And we'll have some exciting news coming up as we get closer to the election, as we get closer to covering debates for ways that we are going to contribute to the process as well. So let us know what you guys think. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching another one of our water cooler series.
And remember, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button so you can be notified anytime we have new videos. But that will do it for us on this week's Water Cooler. As always, he's been Anthony, I've been Carlos, and remember, in the words of JFK, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Until next time.